Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got a very interesting combination with a shell that I have never tested before, but I think it might have a little bit more potential than a lot of other turkey loads do when it comes to this particular type of shell anyway. So I have some decent hopes for it, but we're really just going to have to do some testing with it and see how it generally performs, because it could be pretty good or it still could be a little disappointing as well. But as for the shells I got today, I picked up some of these. There's some old Federal Mag-Shok turkey loads, but they are a 20 gauge, 3-inch, 1 5/16 ounce payload of lead 5-shot, moving about 1185 feet per second. And as you can see, they have a flight control wad in them as well. They're copper plated, they're buffered with that flight control wad in a 20 gauge shell loaded with lead for turkeys. Very interesting combination here. I don't think Federal makes these anymore. They kind of got rid of the Mag-Shok line, and I don't even know if they make a dedicated lead 20 gauge turkey shell with the flight control wad anymore. Maybe a flight control flex wad, but I'm really not a fan of those because I think they might have some in the Grand Slam line for that purpose. But these are a very interesting loading for sure. I found these in the bargain bin at one of my small town local shops for pretty cheap, so I had to pick them up to see what they could do, because lead shells for turkeys in a 20 gauge are usually a little bit borderline. 25-30 yards, yeah, you're gonna absolutely do the job, but any farther than that, if you're using lead, you probably are gonna want to go up to a 12 gauge based on our testing anyway. But these have some potential if they're loaded like this, so we'll see what happens as we test them. As for the setup we're running them in, I brought out my Stevens 301 20 gauge. It does currently have a scope on top, but it'll be all right for today's test. However, I do plan on swapping that out for probably a red dot as we're moving into turkey season now. But it's got a 26-inch barrel on it, and for the choke, we're going to start with something that we know is usually pretty reliable, that being the Patternmaster Code Black Turkey. It's a 565 constriction. Now, yes, this choke does have porting on it, and it does have the little steps inside the choke to get tighter and tighter constriction. So will that play with the flight control wad a little bit? Maybe, maybe not. We may have to run those through a completely smooth, non-ported choke, but we'll start here and see what happens. As for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. Even if it's a 20 gauge lead turkey load, I'm not going to handicap it at all. I've got the turkey paper set up at 40 yards and the chrono so we can get our velocity. So let's get you guys a view of that target and see if these old Federal Mag-Shok 20 gauge flight control turkey loads can actually give us something decent. I think there's potential, but I think we could be let down a little bit as well. So let's take our shot and see what happens. Okay, so that shell gave us 1111 through the chrono. Boss claim is 1185, so we are a little bit below that number, but we have a 26-inch barrel. Factory probably tested it through a 28 or potentially even a 30, because they sometimes like to do that. But still, 1100 or a little bit over is plenty enough velocity for a lead 5, regardless of what gauge of shell they're in. But did they actually pattern well all the way out to 40? Let's go see what we got. Okay, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and we do definitely have a dead turkey out here at 40. We've got 3 through the brain and several more down the neck area there that would have done the job. So is it 40-yard capable right off the bat? Yes, I would say it is. You've got enough pellets through the head and neck area for sure to do the job, even though it technically might only take 1 pellet. You've definitely got a number of them through there, and there's nowhere left or right on that paper he can move to and get away from you. So it is indeed 40-yard capable. Now, looking at the pattern as a whole here, it is far from the worst 20 gauge turkey pattern we've gotten with a lead shell, that's for sure. We've seen tremendously worse. But is it as good as something like a Longbeard XR shell would be in 12 gauge or a TSS load in 20 gauge? Definitely not. It's a good bit more on the broad and open side rather than being nice and hot through the core area. We really don't have any kind of noticeable core. It's just kind of shot placed all around that bird, to be honest with you. We might have favored a hair off to the right, but I don't think it really made a difference. But what I'm looking at here as well, especially in person, it's not the most perfectly even spread of pellets either. You kind of have a little bit of a hot splotch right behind that bird's head, as well as I think it gets a little bit hotter over here just off the right edge of that turkey target. And outside of that, we definitely have a little bit of stringy stuff going on. There's a bigger void right up here in the top left area, another good one right dead center on the left edge there, and a little more stringy stuff down along the bottom. So it's not a perfectly even spread of pellets either. You definitely have little hot pockets throughout that pattern. But overall, at least this is a usable 40-yard lead turkey combination, which is more than we can say for a good number of other lead 20 gauge shells when it comes to turkey applications. So we have a decent starting point to work off of. It's not the ultimate best turkey pattern ever, but it's far from the worst. And like I mentioned earlier, maybe if we go to a little bit less constriction with a choke that's smooth and not ported and doesn't have any kind of steps or wad stripping rings or anything like that in it, that might be the ticket here. Or who knows, maybe even a fixed full choke might be really good with these shells. Because I already see it coming. A lot of people are going to say, you got to run a flight control through an improved cylinder choke, even though it's a turkey load, to get it to perform. And I can tell you right now, that is not true from just about any of our flight control testing we've done, especially turkey shells. So we've got some more testing and tuning to do, but at least we're off to a pretty decent usable start. And if this is what I had, I would definitely turkey hunt with it out to 40 yards and feel confident enough to do the job. And I definitely have hopes that we can tune it in a little bit more than this. And here is that flight control wad from that shell. Definitely a little bit more of a goofy one. It's quite a bit longer than a lot of the other flight control wads that we've tested, but this is an older version as well. This is kind of the quote-unquote original flight control wad. I think they were a little bit longer, and this is not a flex wad either. It's got the big flaps on the side instead of the slots. Overall though, it looks perfectly normal, nothing out of the ordinary. We might have had a little bit of snagging come into play right up here as it reached that choke, and maybe, like I said, going to a smooth non-ported choke or something might get rid of that little bit of snag up, which may help us out a little, but nothing stuck down in there. And overall, I think it did its job good enough anyway, considering what the shell is and the setup that we put it through. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that result right there? It's usable, it's decent, it's a solid enough turkey pattern to do the job out to 40 yards, but is it an over-the-top impressive turkey pattern? Definitely not. Obviously, it's nowhere near TSS capability from a 20 gauge, that's for sure. And even when it comes to lead turkey shells, a 12 gauge Longbeard XR load is going to blow that out of the water as well. So it just shows why 20 gauge with a lead turkey load generally is a 30 yard and in safe bet, most of the time anyway. Obviously, you could push this pattern to 40 yards and still be good enough, but I think it's probably still going to be a little bit more broad and open than what some people might prefer. And we've still got some more testing and tuning to do on it, so I hope that we can dial it in a little bit tighter than that. And if we can, then it might lead to a really nice turkey pattern. It might not be the tightest or have the hottest core, but if we bring those edges down a little bit and, have a 16 or 18 inch pretty round circular spread of pellets, it's going to be a pretty nice performer. So we're definitely going to be running it some more through some other chokes, and maybe even a fixed full or a fixed modified choke as well, if that's something you want to see. But leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these old 20 gauge Mag-Shok turkey loads? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Is this a pattern or a combo you would turkey hunt with? Or would you prefer to see it a little tighter, a little more even than that? Or if you're running a 20 gauge, would you just rather use something like TSS? And what other combos do you want to see us run this shell in that you think might be a good performer? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, you have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.